What's up everybody, I'm Ryan Telgenik with GamesRadar.com, and today we're talking about the 10 best games of all time. Now I know what you're thinking. Best games of all time? Geez, that is an intense title to bestow upon a game. That's so much weight. But to be clear, we're not talking about the most important games like Ocarina of Time or GoldenEye. We're not talking about, the most classic games of all time. We're talking about the 10 best games that are the best ones to play right now. So without any further ado, let's jump into your number 10.
World of Warcraft, the game that has ruined lives.
I remember in high school, I used to treat WoW like a second job. I would get home from school, immediately log in, play for 6 hours, and then start my homework at 11 o'clock at night.
All right, let's talk about MMOs prior to WoW real quick, because I think to understand why this is such an important game and such an amazing game, you really have to understand that MMOs prior to the year like 2004 when this came out were very, very complicated games. I mean, you're talking about building a character, leveling through hundreds of quests and group content and that sort of thing, but they were also at one time very difficult to get into. They weren't accessible. You had quest hubs that were centered in throughout all these various zones, and it was very logical to move from one hub to the next to the next. Now we take that for granted now, but back then that was a very big step because suddenly you didn't get lost in this humongous world that you could explore forever and then never figure out where you have to go.
The way that World of Warcraft took all the Warcraft lore before it, so 1, 2, and 3, which I loved, was incredible. You would have moments where you're fighting against this enemy you've seen in other games time and again. Except here, you're actually at ground level, looking up at this crazy huge monster and doing your best to kill it with 39 other people.
You definitely have to give World of Warcraft credit for its longevity. Like, it's just been around forever. All these new WoW killers come out and try to replace it, and everybody just keeps coming straight back to WoW.
One of the things that makes A Link to the Past so great, more so than any other in the series, really established the blueprint for what we look for in a Zelda game.
The mere openness of the world and the sheer size of it blew me away as a kid. Being able to discover things on your own at your own pace and find areas that you were sure no one else had ever found before, even though the game was designed that way, was brilliant.
Like, the graphics are timeless. The surprising, insane depth to it is still just so impressive today, like that a Super NES game could have something this big in it. And it takes what was great about the NES one and just makes it even better. Like, it is the pinnacle of the 2D Zelda franchise.
It started off this whole formula for Zelda. You start off with the introduction 3 dungeons, then move on to the new world. That happens in Ocarina of Time and Twilight Princess. So basically all of them. It's like the foundation of the Zelda series.
It kind of put all of these elements into place. Add to that like an amazing color palette, an incredible soundtrack, and really you have one of the best games ever made.
The Last of Us is the kind of thing that I've wanted out of video games for a long time. I've always really thought video game stories were really important, and there was more to be done with them than was being done at some points. The Last of Us really puts it out there, creates this really beautiful story, this like heart-wrenching tale about this man and his surrogate daughter just trying to make it through a really terrible time.
So video games have really been trying to get mature storytelling and really mature storytelling done right. And there have been a lot more misses than hits, but The Last of Us is really, really good at it.
I mean, never know what to expect. Like, they're just cruising around, driving a truck down the street, and then all of a sudden a bunch of bandits are trying to kill them, or you find some friends, and then all of a sudden they're shooting each other in the face, and like all kinds of stuff is just insane all the time. And then there's Giraffe.
Those interactions coupled with the really great story and the extremely tense action in the game that is underscored by a really chilling soundtrack. Like, all of these things come together to make an incredible experience.
So a lot of people always talk about the wonderment of playing games in the Super Mario Brothers series, and for me, World is the one that encapsulates all of it. It's so colorful, it's so playful, it's difficult if you want it to be and you're trying to get every exit in the game. It seemed to take the fundamentals from Super Mario Brothers 3, like the level variety and the whimsical feeling of the world, and it added a lot of really good design elements, like teaching you how to approach certain enemies at just the right speed, and the items were amazing. The feather still holds a place in my heart as the best item in the game.
Super Mario World is the ultimate of that. Like, it introduced Yoshi to the franchise. It had this massive map that you could just explore, so many different stages to go to.
It made great use of the system's vibrant color capabilities, had an amazing soundtrack backed with it that anybody can still hum to this day. Like, this game is absolutely fantastic and it holds up like you wouldn't believe.
Bioshock has the greatest twist in any video game ever made. It stares you in the face from the second you start. It keeps basically yelling at you what's happening. You find all these different clues about what's going on through this really fun gameplay, really gross, violent. You get this real sense of what the world is like. And in between all of that, you're getting clues about what's really happening. And you still don't notice until the moment comes and you're just like, holy shit.
The reason people love Bioshock is because of the world building. It feels like almost a theme park that you're just sort of there for the ride. And the characters are great, the writing is great, but really it's the atmosphere of Rapture that gets everyone so involved into the game.
It's a commentary on video games and what playing a video game means, the control you give up about yourself. It's also, a very political game, which is very interesting. Like, it deals with a lot of mature subject matter people aren't used to seeing in games.
It's just this wild experience, and the world is just nothing like anything you've ever seen in a game before. So, man, Bioshock definitely deserves to be up here.
An intruder! He is ugly! 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 Ugly!
It's hard to say that any game will have like ageless graphics, but Wind Waker comes pretty close. The cartoony design that some people really hated on when it was first announced just looks gorgeous now.
You got to like ride your own boat that talked to you, and you explored this huge world. Tingle was in it. Tingle was back, and he was like crazy and weird and stuff.
Like, it's impossible to not smile as soon as it goes exploring the ocean around the world. And I mean, the dungeons are just as awesome as they've always been. The item collection and the progression is still really, really great. But it is such a unique game just because of really the presentation that it has.
Shadow of the Colossus is a very spare game. Like, it doesn't seem to include anything more than it needs. Like, a lot of games have, a big dungeon and then a boss fight, but this game is just all bosses. Like, it's just you're dropped into a big circular world, you need to find a thing to kill it, and then when you do, you'll find the next thing to kill.
If I knew I were about to go fight a massive giant and I was the only one that could kill it, I think I would probably bring a rocket launcher, a grappling hook, and several other really heavy weaponry and tools to help me do it. But no, in Shadow of the Colossus, you don't have any of those things. You have a sword, you have a horse, and you have a bow. That's all you got.
This game is pretty much guilt epitomized. You go in thinking, okay, I've just got this random monster crusher that I'm working on, and it is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to solve the puzzles. It's a lot of fun to succeed. But the further you go, the more you kind of wonder, am I doing the right thing? And even when you get to the end, the answer might be no.
Yeah, the sense of scale here and the incredible attention to, forcing players into learning the puzzle layout of each of these encounters is really, really great. Yeah, for Super Metroid, really it's all about the progression and pacing of that game. Like, even now, few games manage to do it as well. Like, first of all, there's that incredible intro sequence that does a great job of just immediately establishing what's going on and why you're doing what you're doing.
So it seems like a lot of these games that people really remember and hold in their minds as the best games ever have to do with atmosphere, like Bioshock, like A Link to the Past, and to me, Super Metroid is the pinnacle of that world building, where you feel so alone on this foreign space age planet, and wandering around as Samus, figuring out, what can I actually do, where can I go, what's gonna kill me when I get there, was incredible.
While so many of its competitors in the 2D space are so linear and they just take you from right to left, Metroid became a very open game, and so many other games have taken from that it's open, but it's very defined where you're going to go. You just have to find your way.
The thing that this game does so well is it creates this bizarre sense of isolation. Like, yeah, you're playing alone, so of course you're isolated, but you really feel it. You really feel it because of not only the gameplay, but also that the really tense, moody score that plays while you're exploring. And even now, few games are able to capture that same sense. It's really, really great.
There's so many JRPGs, but Chrono Trigger is my favorite, bar none, because JRPGs are about getting to know the character, and Chrono Trigger is about the characters, and there's so many good ones. All of them have their own story to get to know that's so special.
You could either kill a bad guy and just have him be dead, or you could have him join your team. There's all kinds of crazy stuff that would happen, and each of the characters were really memorable, like the Frog Prince guy, whose name was Frog, and Robo. All the characters are super cool. The animation for it was amazing, real Dragon Ball Z style, and awesome.
Yeah, the story takes you to lots of different places. The characters are all great, and really it's just one of those kind of timeless RPGs because the visual style still holds up really well, and you can play it on your DS.
The combat system is always on the world. You see the enemies everywhere you go, which was so revolutionary for its time and still is. And same with the attacks, the combo attacks made each setup of your group different and unique and special. And also, the art and the music is unparalleled. For 16-bit art, it doesn't get much better than Chrono Trigger.
Portal is an amazing game. It's so charming. The minimalist quality of it is so much fun. It's exactly what you need to see, nothing more, nothing less. The puzzles are challenging. You'll hate yourself when you can't figure out the very obvious solution. But when you do manage to get it, just the overwhelming feeling of how awesome you are. It blows you away.
The game sort of told a story without shoving it down your throat. You'd find, little hints every now and then, maybe a few Ratman dens, but it was more the feeling of, where is everybody? I thought this was a test facility. I'm not seeing any scientists. That build-up was super memorable for me.
Right? Its gameplay, its story, and its characters, all of those things are phenomenal.
Portal doesn't have any of the, all this baggage behind it. You don't need to understand a lot of stuff, and you can take it at your own pace. It is this beautiful puzzle platformer that, you have to figure out as you go, but there's so few moving parts. It doesn't just put a gun in your hand and say here's how to look at things inverted, and this throws a grenade, and then this pulls out your fourth weapon, and it's none of that stuff.
It doesn't force story upon you, but if you are interested in that, it's very much there. And then the characters, the fact that you give a shit about a really rude AI, and even characters as small as a, inanimate cube. You do care about the companion cube, and you do care when you incinerate it and then GLaDOS taunts you for it. It's the fact that it does all of these things so well. Unless what we look for in a good game somehow magically changes, I think Portal's going to be sticking up at #1 for quite a while yet. right, guys, that'll do it for our top 10 games of all time. We would love to hear your feedback in the comments below. Do you, by chance, maybe agree with one or two of the entries? Perfect. You hate them all? Let us know. We want to hear. We also have our 100 best games of all time list over at gamesradar.com. Check out the link below to see that one. And then for all your future gaming needs, head over to gamesradar.com and we'll see you there.